Once again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Msdn webcast. It's my pleasure to hand the floor over to Scott Guthrie, General Manager, Developer Platform here at Microsoft. We're going to pause for just a moment while Scott takes the floor. Stand by.
And so I don't think it's that far off. We did hit what we call zero ZBB or zero bug bounce on Friday of last week. And so typically what happens is once we hit that point, that fixes a lot of feature bugs. We'll stabilize for a couple of weeks to handle any regressions, but it's not that far off. Yeah. Good to go? Okay, I think we're good to go back there apparently. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming. This is the final session of the day. For those who don't know me, my name is Scott Guthrie. I am a General Manager in the Microsoft Developer Division, and I run a lot of the platform teams for .NET. So specifically, I run the development teams that build the CLR, our compact framework for mobile devices, ASP.NET, WPF, or Windows Presentation Foundation, Silverlight, IIS, our web server, our media server technology, commerce server, and then our Visual Studio tools for client and web development. So a little wide spectrum of different things. What I'm going to basically be spending the next sort of hour and 15 minutes talking about is this new technology that we announced at the Mixed conference about a month ago that we call Silverlight. And in general, I think it's hopefully a pretty exciting technology, and one that I think from a .NET developer's perspective, as well as for someone trying to build kind of next generation user experiences that can be viewed very easily by your clients, hopefully a pretty exciting technology and release to take advantage of. Quick poll of hands, how many people have downloaded Silverlight? Okay, a lot of people. Cool. How many people have seen lots of videos online with Silverlight? Okay, a few people. Cool. Hopefully there's a few videos you haven't seen yet that I'm going to be showing demos that we'll be walking through today. And for those of you who haven't gone ahead and used Silverlight, I'll post this URL a couple times throughout the talk, and at the very end. You can go to www.silverlight.net, and you can go ahead and download both Silverlight from a client perspective, as well as get links to all of the tools necessary to support it. So specifically, you can use Visual Studio Orchis, and we have an add-in for Orchis that supports Silverlight. We also have a version of Expression Blend that you can go ahead and download for free to target Silverlight as well. And so every one of the demos I'm going to be showing today, you can go ahead and code up yourself there at home. This is the address for my blog. If you haven't checked out my blog before, I recommend going there. There's lots of .NET, ASP.NET, and Silverlight content that I post fairly regularly on it. I'm going to be doing a post in the next day or two based on this talk that will include not only the slides, which will also be on the DVD that you'll get, but you can download the slides immediately if you want, but also all of the samples that I'm going to be showing online. All but one of the samples I'm going to be showing during this talk also point URL to online that you can go ahead and watch and download yourself. So if hopefully you think something that looks cool, want to show a friend, check out my blog or subscribe to it, and you can go ahead and starting immediately point them at the apps that I'm going to show right now. So what is Silverlight? So at a high level, Silverlight is a cross-platform, cross-browser plugin that basically enables you to build kind of next-generation web user experiences. And specifically, these next-generation user experiences are focused on two core scenarios. One that we call media. And it's basically, how do you incorporate video? How do you incorporate audio? How do you incorporate kind of next-generation playing experiences within a browser? And a category that we call RIA, which, depending on which analyst you talk to, either stands for Rich Internet Application or Rich Interactive Application. And there, basically, you can sort of take a lot of the benefits of the client in terms of richer graphics, richer user interface, but run these apps in a cross-browser, cross-platform way with seamless deployment down to a browser environment. You can use two ways to program Silverlight. You can go ahead and use a JavaScript programming model. The benefit there is you can go ahead and take any HTML page that you have today where you're using AJAX, whether it's ASP.NET AJAX, and we have lots of support for that, or a different AJAX library. And you can go ahead and with JavaScript program against both the HTML as well as the DOM built within Silverlight. We also then have a programming model for Silverlight which is .NET based, which allows you to use any .NET language, whether it's a compiled language like VB or C#, or whether it's a dynamic language like Python, JavaScript, VB, or Ruby, which are all languages that we'll support with Silverlight, and again, allow you to go ahead and build applications for Silverlight and run all that code in the browser on the client. And so as part of the Silverlight download, we include a cross-platform version of the .NET framework, and one that can run seamlessly in the browser with very easy deployment characteristics. So one of the questions usually when people ask about Silverlight is, how do I think about Silverlight in terms of how I'm doing development today? How many people are using .NET for development today? Cool, a lot of people. Typically, you're probably doing development in one of two different categories, either in the web space or in the desktop space. And certainly over the next year, we're doing lots of significant releases in both of these categories, and have kind of made a lot of investments in these spaces, and absolutely are continuing to make huge investments in these spaces. Silverlight does not replace either of these spaces. I'll talk about that in just a second. From the web perspective, this year is a pretty substantial year because of a couple of different releases that we're doing. Earlier this January, we released ASP.NET Ajax 1.0, which you can download and use for free today using ASP.NET 2, as well as using DS 2005. And it basically provides kind of a fully supported Ajax framework and allows you to go ahead and build kind of rich HTML-based applications within the client. Later this summer, we're going to ship Beta 2 of our Orchis release, also now called DS 2008, which includes a whole bunch of features for web development. I'm going to be doing a breakout talk tomorrow morning, and then early in the afternoon, a Part 1, Part 2 talk. They'll specifically drill in kind of all of the kind of substantial improvements that we're making as part of this Orchis release with both ASP.NET and with Visual Studio to target it. Lots of really exciting stuff coming. Later this year, then, we're also going to ship IIS 7, which is our web server that's included inside Windows Longhorn Server. This also shipped on the client version with Windows Vista, and this is kind of also a substantial major upgrade to the Microsoft Web Server stack. I'd say it's probably the most significant release of IIS we've done since the 1.0 release in the very beginning. And I'll show a few demos of IIS 7 as well in my talk tomorrow, but lots and lots of good stuff there. Then on the desktop side, we've done a lot of releases this year, and we'll continue to make a lot of enhancements this year and next year, specifically focusing on client development. And so WPF, or Windows Presentation Foundation, shipped earlier this year as part of Windows Vista. You can also download it for Windows XP. And it basically really kind of provides kind of an ability to build next generation desktop experiences that run on top of Windows. Lets you incorporate 3D, lets you incorporate hardware accelerated graphics, and allow you to build kind of really rich offline apps that can be run inside the browser, they can be run inside the desktop, and they can be run inside Office. Also, as part of the Orchis release, then, we're going to be shipping our Visual Studio tools for targeting WPF, and we include inside Orchis a full WPF WYSIWYG designer. We've also then shipped a suite of designer products that we call Expression that also are capable of targeting both WPF as well as ASP.NET from a designer perspective. So that's everything in the web and the desktop space. Lots of improvements, a lot of innovations coming in that space. Where we really see Silverlight fitting in is kind of a new category that's emerging. This category I called Media and Media Experience. And this category is new, and it kind of blends a lot of the best of both worlds in terms of doing development. It provides kind of a seamless deployment experience like HTML has today in the web, and it typically is a cross-browser, cross-platform type of implementation. And it also then incorporates a lot of the elements of the desktop. So in other words, you have a richer stateful client model running inside the browser. Typically, you have a richer controls framework. You have things like data binding and rich visualization. And it feels, in some ways, you can incorporate a lot of the benefits of desktop app development and some of the productivity and performance benefits you can get with it. And what we're trying to do with Silverlight is kind of go squarely at this category and provide kind of a really rich runtime. Again, it's cross-browser, cross-platform, a really rich .NET-based programming model. So the cool thing is you can now use .NET on the web server, you can use it on a desktop client, and you can now run it cross-browser inside Silverlight. You can learn a single kind of consistent .NET API, and once you know that, you can target any of those three types of experiences. And then from a tooling perspective, obviously you can use any development tool out there you want. But from the Microsoft perspective, we're obviously spending a lot of time focusing on the developer space with Visual Studio, and then providing a rich designer tooling infrastructure with our Expression suite of products. So that's kind of the high-level pitch. So in terms of what does Silverlight provide? So I'm going to drill into a whole bunch of code and development scenarios in just a minute. But the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is some of the media experiences that are available with Silverlight. So specifically, Silverlight includes a rich media runtime as part of the overall client experience. And what this media runtime lets you do is it lets you very easily play both video and audio within the browser. The media runtime includes all of the codec decoders necessary to play video and audio. So in other words, if you're building a site and you want to incorporate video, you don't have to worry about someone installing the appropriate codec driver or download in order to play it. You can go ahead and just link to a video or link to an audio file with Silverlight, and you'll basically be able to go ahead and use it, again, cross-browser, cross-platform within the client. Our video codecs are very high quality, higher quality than pretty much anything else out there. And specifically, we support a format called VC1 for encoding your video. This is actually an open standard format that anyone can implement. It's implemented built-in to all HD DVD as well as Blu-ray DVD recorders. So any kind of high-quality video you see with a high-quality DVD, again, it's the same format that we're using as part of Silverlight. A couple benefits there is it means that you can stream very high-quality video up to HD 720p level quality and run that on standard hardware, again, without having to have any special drivers installed, be able to stream that live within the browser kind of experience. For all of our streaming, we basically support a couple different ways that you can go ahead and download the video, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Basically, if you have a web server out there today, whether it's an IIS web server, whether it's an Apache web server running on Linux, you can go ahead and take a WMV or a VC1 encoded video file, copy it up to that web server, and from within Silverlight, just point the URL at that video file. It'll go ahead and download. Once it has enough buffered, it'll start playing it, and you're good to go. You don't need to install any special server software in order to make that work. We also, then, as part of the media experience, though, do support broadcast streaming. And with our streaming server, you can also go ahead and connect to a streaming server and play it over the wire using a streaming protocol. And the benefit there is instead of having to download everything, you can go ahead and skip back and forth as the user is watching the video and only download the appropriate video necessary for them to go ahead and do the experience. Ends up saving you a lot of money. So rather than just sort of talk a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and show some of the video experiences in action and give you a sense of what you can do. So you can go ahead and go to the Silverlight.net website, and if you go to the media gallery, you can go ahead and have this same experience live on the web. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this in order to launch it. One of the videos that we have posted up there. One of the cool things is you can double click and go full screen. So with Silverlight, you can actually take over the entire screen on the browser. Notice you can do kind of DVD-like overlays of graphics or content on top of the experience. So if you want to skip ahead here or skip back, you can do that. Turn down the sound for just a second. But you can basically go ahead and skip back and forward between different scenes. If you want to see a playlist, we can go ahead and check out different videos and go ahead and incorporate those. And as you can see, the quality is very, very high. This is actually just being pulled directly from the file system or a web server and downloaded. You can also go ahead and, as I mentioned, point at a streaming server in order to go ahead and stream it remotely as well. And again, the experience of being able to kind of overlay capabilities on top of this, being able to add code and animation as well as kind of controls directly with the video, enables some pretty rich experience. So enough of that. In terms of a few other kind of quick media experiences to kind of show off, go ahead and show one we call video wall. If you want to see kind of some of the performance of what you can do, this is sort of, 12 videos playing in parallel. Can allow you to go ahead and hover over a particular video and pull it into focus. As you can see, they're all playing simultaneously. So it sort of gives you a sense of some of the media capabilities, some of the media runtime support that it provides. Any quick questions on media? Question there. Yeah, good question. The question is, can you support things like closed captioning within the video? So in other words, you can have subtitles, or for people who are hearing impaired, you can go ahead and encode that. Absolutely. Silverlight does include the ability to encode subtitles as well as closed captioning within the video. So you can absolutely. Yeah, basically we'll use the industry standard. One of the cool things about the video and just the overall video experience is that there's a full programmatic support with it. So you can also, for example, inject markers into the video. So if at a certain point in the video you want to go ahead and run some action, you can go ahead and do that as well. A common scenario might be, say you're doing training, you're doing a training video. You can go ahead and say, oh, I'm talking about Visual Studio right now, And at that point in your player, you can pop up a, click here to go ahead and download this article or go ahead and check this out. Quick question. No, this is actually, we're doing software rasterization here, which means that there's no drivers that need to be installed. The video format itself, can support software or hardware acceleration, at some point in the future, but this actually works directly without even having to do that. One last kind of little video I suppose I could go ahead and show. Another question, actually, while I go ahead and pull this one up? Yeah. Yeah, good question. The question is, I'm supporting local, or I'm doing sort of server-based video right now. Could I also go ahead and support, let's say, local video as well? The answer is yes. So, for example, here is a video puzzle app. I just double-clicked it off my desktop in order to run it. This is actually a puzzle. What's kind of cool about the puzzle is you can actually pull it apart. Yeah. And so you can, this is really hard to solve, believe me. The record on our team is 12 minutes. I'm not going to try to solve it everywhere. You can actually get a little hint. And so you can get a few of them put together here, which helps tremendously as you're building it. And then if you try to solve it, you can see it actually being put together here entirely. And what's cool about this is I have a single video, and these are actual puzzle controls that are built within the app. And I'm basically painting each of the controls with what's called a video brush. And so effectively, I can just take any video and superimpose it on a control. And so, if you wanted to, you could take a data grid control, superimpose video. I don't know why you do that, but it'd be cool. It's sort of an example of what you can go ahead and do. So hopefully you can see pretty powerful graphics engine, lets you incorporate media, lets you incorporate animation graphics in a really rich way. Yeah. Perfect. It's a good question. The question is, what about encoding? I'll pay the $20 later. This is a good segue to talk about tooling experience. Oh, no, it's not actually. It's good to talk about streaming. I'm going to come back to tooling in just a second. So one thing that actually about sort of streaming video that can be a big challenge is sort of the cost effectiveness. So in other words, it's great to be able to do high definition video like 720p or DVD quality. You stick it on your web server, you build a cool video. Like one of the things that people who have done that have found you get a lot of people watching and downloading that video, which is great from a reach perspective. When it comes time to actually pay your hosting bill at the end of the month, it can sometimes be a bit of a shocker. There's a couple things that we're doing in that space. I'll talk a little bit about some of our server streaming and server bandwidth throttling work that we're shipping for free on top of Windows servers you'll be able to take advantage of a little bit later on in this talk. The other service that we're announcing, you actually can go ahead and start using it immediately, is this thing we call Silverlight streaming. And basically the way Silverlight streaming works is you can go ahead and take your video, you can go ahead and upload it into a Microsoft server. So we basically have a web page you go to, you upload the video. It can be up to 20 minutes or 10 minutes in length. It could be DVD quality in 10-minute segments. You can upload multiple versions of the video, so you can split your video into multiple 10-minute segments and just stitch them together. And you can store up to 4 gigabytes of video content on our data center. We'll then give you back the URL to that video, and you can then go ahead and build a Silverlight app or Windows Presentation Foundation app, and basically just point at the URL and go ahead and play it. We'll then go ahead and stream it for you. We'll provide all the storage. We'll provide all of the bandwidth, and we do it for free. You get up to 1 million minutes per month of free video, and if you want to go above that, you can either pay a small fee, or there's also an ad option where it's free for any number of minutes, and then you can incorporate an ad, and we do a revenue share, so anyone who watches your video ends up paying you money if they go ahead and watch the ad. So a fairly attractive offer. It's pretty easy to take advantage of. Most people have less than 1 million minutes of video that they want to share each month, but if you do, you can go ahead and take advantage of this immediately today. So hopefully a cool service to leverage. So going back to the question from the gentleman at the beginning, what's the tooling story like for doing video or building any type of these types of rich experiences, which kind of segues nicely here. So one of the things, when that video player that I showed, both the Scrabble one as well as the Fantastic Four video, had a custom skinning experience when watching that video. So obviously we did a lot of work encoding the video, but then we built a whole custom player experience. With Silverlight, you can have any type of playing experience you want. There's no built-in kind of next, previous, stop button that you're hard-coded to have to use. You can go ahead and customize and skin that experience any way you want. It's basically an app that you can go ahead and build. And we'll show a little bit about kind of how you skin Silverlight apps in just a little bit. One of the sort of challenges, though, whenever you start building rich user experiences, though, is how do you kind of mix both the design element as well as the development element together? And how many people work with designers on their team? How many people are designers? 2 people. How many people are developers? Many more. How many people work with designers? Number of people. Okay. Well, so how many people are both designers and developers? Yeah, number of people. Okay. So I think a lot of times when we talk about kind of design and development, we often have kind of a very nice kind of model that we like to talk about where you start with kind of the design phase and you come up with kind of conceptually how the app's going to work. You spec it out. You really think hard about the walkthroughs. You build nice graphic comps in something like Photoshop or another video editor in order to stitch things together, and then you go ahead and implement it. And then you pass it off to a developer who goes ahead and works with that design, and and adds dynamic behavior to it. And we've all been there, right? And what ends up happening is obviously usually you can sort of salvage a lot of that, but as you get in the later phase of doing development, it's very hard often to have developer and designers collaborate together. It's very hard to go ahead and tweak the design late in the process because it often requires sending back comps back and forth between the two and going, gosh, this is going to take me forever to do. Let's just not do it. And what we're trying to do with Silverlight, as well as with WPF, as well as with ASP.NET, is to try to make that experience a lot easier. One way we've done that is we're shipping a new product suite we call Expression Studio. It basically is a set of products that are focused at designers, but are specifically designed to collaborate with developers using Visual Studio. And so there's Expression Web for doing ASP.NET development and HTML development. There's Expression Blend, which gives you interaction support for both WPF as well as Silverlight. I'm going to be demoing that in just a few moments. Then there's Expression Design, which is a vector graphics tool for designing image elements that can be used in both ASP.NET as well as WPF Silverlight elements. And it's something called Expression Media, which provides both encoding support as well as media management support. And going back to the question at the front there was, if I have video, let's say an AVI, let's say a video from a Handycam from within this audience, one of the things you can go ahead and do is you can go ahead and open that inside Expression Media. You can go ahead and trim the length. You can do some basic editing. You can go ahead and pick the bit rate of how you want it to look. You can superimpose logos. You can add closed captioning. You can go ahead and add marker files, and then you can go ahead and code it out into a VC1 format that Silverlight supports. All of that can be automated, and you can go ahead and do that both on the command line as well as within the actual tool itself. Expression Web and Expression Blend are now included free with every MSDN premium subscription. So if you have an MSDN premium account today, you can download these products immediately from the Microsoft website. If you have the higher MSDN suite, all of the 4 products are included as well. So definitely worth taking advantage of. So that's sort of a little bit about the design. Let's talk about the development, since we have a lot of developers here in the room. So with Silverlight, you can basically do 2 modes of development. And both are fully supported and will be fully supported going forward. The first one is a JavaScript AJAX model. And basically what we provide with Silverlight is the ability for you to go ahead and use client-side JavaScript running within a web page to reference the Silverlight control, and then to reach into the control and manipulate any of the XAML elements or any of the media elements included within it, or any of the controls included within it. And this basically provides kind of a nice, fairly lightweight way that you can go ahead and very easily incorporate Silverlight within an HTML site. And the benefit is, again, you can use HTML as well as XAML equally running within the browser. And so the demos I showed, all the media, all the Scrabble demos, were actually built using a JavaScript-based programming model with Silverlight. We have full support for this within ASP.NET AJAX. Specifically, we're shipping 2 server controls with ASP.NET AJAX. We call the media control and the XAML control that specifically help with this. And we'll also be shipping ASP.NET AJAX client-side libraries that make it much easier to go ahead and manipulate Silverlight content running within the browser. But again, you can use any JavaScript library, any standard JavaScript you want in order to do this alternatively. We also then are enabling a .NET programming model. This won't be supported in the first Silverlight release, which is coming out this summer, but you can go ahead and download the alpha version of this today, and we're going to be writing a lot of code with this in just a few moments. And this basically provides kind of a full .NET Framework programming model for targeting Silverlight. Included within Silverlight is a small version of the .NET Framework. It's the same version that will ship on Windows as well as on the Mac, so you have a consistent experience on all platforms. And specifically, this .NET Framework has the same CLR engine that's running, with the .NET Framework today. So it's actually the same CLR engine that's running MySpace. It's the same CLR engine that's running any rich client app that you've built using Visual Studio as well. Big benefit there, obviously, is performance. It also gives you a consistent programming model with other .NET form vectors. So again, you can share code, and you can use the same concept to get the same behavior in all the different places. It includes a subset of the full .NET Framework library. And I'll go into more detail about what that subset looks like in about 5 minutes. But they're designed to be a compatible subset, and specifically the subset of APIs that you need in order to go ahead and do browser-based development as part of that. And then you can use any .NET language you want, and you can use both Visual Studio and Expression in order to go ahead and target either of these two types, the .NET programming model, and obviously you can use also Visual Studio and Expression to target the JavaScript programming model as well. So one question that often I get asked is, why is it compelling to be able to use .NET in the browser? And I think there's a couple different compelling reasons. One is the #ability to use whatever language you want in order to build your client apps. So you don't have to use JavaScript, although obviously you can if you want to. You can also use VB, you can use C#. We're also supporting dynamic languages like Python, Ruby, obviously JavaScript, as well as a dynamic flavor of VB. Someone's actually already taken the Silverlight 1.1 alpha, and I'll link to this again on my web page later, and built a Smalltalk implementation that runs inside Silverlight. So if you want to run applications using Smalltalk, you can do that as well using Silverlight. Because you're using the same CLR that is running on the server as well as in the desktop, you also get dramatic performance wins. I think Jamie in the keynote this morning probably showed off the chess app, and you can see some of the differences in terms of performance of pure JavaScript interpreted running in the browser versus a .NET version built, say, in C# or VB. In general, what we typically see is performance wins anywhere between sort of 300 to 1,000 times faster sometimes for any kind of compute-intensive operation when you're using .NET versus interpreted JavaScript. Now, obviously, it depends a lot on the scenario, but you can see some pretty dramatic wins. Kind of wins that, frankly, we're somewhat hesitant to claim because they sound almost unreal. But those are some of the benefits that you can get as part of that. You will also then, obviously, with Silverlight, have the ability to have kind of a much richer UI framework that you can then go ahead and program with on the client. And so specifically with Silverlight, we're taking a subset of the full WPF programming model that you can use to target desktop apps today, and including that .NET version of that within the Silverlight runtime. So again, once you learn WPF, you can use it both in the full desktop, you can use it in the browser. In the current version that's shipping in the alpha, the WPF subset is mainly focused on graphics and kind of the core low-level primitives, although there is a control framework in place. Over time, you're going to see us build higher-level controls as we kind of approach the beta phase. We will have things like data binding. We will have a much richer set of core controls. We will have things like data grids, as well as templating and styling, and you'll be able to take advantage of that to build kind of rich apps running in the browser. We also then, as part of Silverlight, have a .NET HTML DOM API. And what this means is that within your Silverlight app, you can actually reach out into the HTML page and also use managed code in order to program the HTML DOM. So you can use VB or C# in order to program any HTML element that you want within the page. So you can do a nice blending of both HTML as well as WPF content within the page. We have a networking stack included within Silverlight. Today it's HTTP-based. We're also looking at providing a sockets-based implementation as well in the future. And what this means then is that on the client side, you can call back to the server. You can use web services. You can use REST. You can use just plain old XML and HTTP in order to go ahead and exchange data back and forth between your client and the server. And again, as you're building kind of richer client apps, this gives you a lot more power, a lot more flexibility in order to build kind of much richer and cleaner client experiences. We're also then going to go ahead and provide very flexible data support. Included within the Silverlight 1.1 alpha is support for LINQ. So we do include the LINQ libraries as part of Silverlight. And this gives you the ability to effectively query any type of data. So you can take any .NET object and go ahead and query it. We will support the ability to query XML And so again, you can go back to the server, retrieve data, and then manage, filter, and work with it locally on the client. And as I mentioned, we'll add data binding support towards UI controls. And so it gives you kind of a much richer experience in order to go ahead and build kind of great, rich client.NET apps. So enough talk. Let's go ahead and actually write some code and show all this stuff off. So what I have here is a version of Visual Studio. This is Orchis Beta 1, which again you can download today. And if you go to the Silverlight.net website, we have links to it, so you can just go ahead and download both Orchis as well as all the samples I'm going to be coding up here on the fly immediately. And so what we're going to go ahead and do here is I basically just want to sort of show off a little bit of kind of what the programming experience is like and build a simple app along the way. And so to start off with, I'm going to do File, New Project inside Visual Studio. And one of the things you'll notice here on the task pane for project types is that in addition to the standard Windows database, web, workflow, and project types that you're probably familiar with today, there's also now a Silverlight node. And it's available for both VB as well as C#. And what I'm just going to go ahead and do is say, create a new Silverlight project using that. And it's going to create a blank, empty project for me to go ahead and work with. So right now, we don't have a WYSIWYG designer for Silverlight within Visual Studio itself. I'm going to show using Expression Blend in just a second, which does have a WYSIWYG designer. We will, again, add a WYSIWYG designer into Visual Studio at some point going forward, but it's not in the current download that you can get today. But what we do have is sort of a text editing experience for working on Silverlight UI files. And these UI files in Silverlight are in a file format we call XAML, which is basically an XML file format that allows you to go ahead and declare elements as well as controls that you can then program it with using any .NET language. So in this case here, I'm just going to use a standard control that's built in called text block. Call it my message. Give it a text attribute, any message you want me to spit out. Hello world, okay.
Why is there a fruit box on my table?
Okay, why is there a fruit box on a fruit box on my table? I don't know why. Don't tell me there's like someone's head in there or something. But anyway, so we got a message here. We'll go ahead and run this app. And as you can see, we basically, okay. So as you can see, we have a sort of simple app running here, just spitting out some text. So let's go ahead and make it a little bit more interactive. So this is, so I can, we'll be adding much more UI in this XAML file going forward. But right now, though, let's actually go and look at the code behind file that maps to it. And as you can see here, basically, it's code behind file. If you're familiar with C#, it looks pretty familiar. You've got using statements for importing namespaces at the top of the page. One of the things you'll notice, it's system dot, obviously you get IntelliSense, even in the alpha today. But you'll also see that you get a fairly rich subset of libraries built in with .NET. So we have collection support, including generics, configuration, diagnostics, globalization, I/O support. There's a link library for doing querying, network API, reflection, security, text, threading, Windows, which contains all the UI layer, as well as an XML API. So it's a fairly rich set of classes. If you want to see and explore the full set, one of the things to check out is the object browser. And just like you can with the object browser today, you can go ahead and open them up and check out any of the APIs. So because it's just using the same CLR running inside Silverlight that we use with the full .NET CLR on the desktop or on the server, all the IntelliSense, all the reflection, all the class browser stuff we just get for free. And then I can go ahead and write some code to work with it. And so you notice we created that myMessage object inside our XAML. Notice that when I go ahead and program against it, I can set properties on it. I can also go ahead and wire up events. So in this case here, I'm just going to say every time you push the left button on your mouse, go ahead and raise this event handler. And I'm just going to say myMessage.text equals I don't know in response to the fruit box question. We'll go ahead and run this, click it, I get I don't know. So fairly simple stuff. If you want to see it cross-platform, go ahead and switch over to a Mac. Why is there fruit box on my table? Again, I don't know, but if I click, I'm a fruit box? Oh, the apple. Oh, I get it. Yeah, now I get it. For those of you who didn't get it, yeah. It's been a long day. Let's show something else. Try to recover from my stupidity. Let's show something else that's, I think, a little cool, which is just to prove that fruit box on our table is real. Let's go ahead and inside Visual Studio say debug attached to process. So obviously we can debug locally and run this. We can also go ahead and using the alpha, again, you can download today, type in the IP address of a Mac. Notice all the processes running on the Mac. Hey, there's a Safari process. Let's go ahead and attach to it. Set a breakpoint right here. We'll flip back to our Mac. We're going to click this text again. We're going to go back to our PC. You can see we've hit the breakpoint right here. Hit F10. Check out the immediate window. This is kind of cool. My message dots. You're getting IntelliSense against a live object running on Safari on the Mac remotely within Visual Studio. What do you want the message to be? Hi? Okay, show cross-browser compatibility. There, we hit F5, go back here, there you go. So, you can see a lot of power there. Fairly easy for you to go ahead and do your development. You can, obviously develop it here, go ahead and debug and test it on your Mac. Anyone who doesn't have a Mac, you might be familiar with a software called Parallels, which lets you do kind of run in a VM inside the Mac. You can actually run VS on the Mac in Parallels and actually step out and debug the browser's process within it, which is a pretty cool demo. So lots of power there, lots of stuff we can take advantage of. So most people in the audience are developers, and they might think, "Gosh, this is very pretty. What ship it?" But we might want to go ahead and make this look somewhat attractive. So one of the things you can do inside the tool today is you can right-click inside the XAML file and open up Expression Blend, and specifically a version of Expression Blend that has some Silverlight support for it. And one of the cool things about it, if you go to the project system, you'll notice that Expression Blend allows you to open the exact same project format that VS 2005 supports. So you can actually have your designers or even yourself work on the project inside Expression. You can also go ahead and work on it within VS. Just hit Save, go in the other tool, and you can run. You can also go ahead and just hit F5 inside Expression and actually run the app. So your designer can make a tweak. You can hit Run, try it out. You don't have to go back to Visual Studio and have a developer do some work in order to integrate. And that type of the ability to have design tools and development tools work on the same files at the same time really lends itself to this sort of nice collaboration kind of experience. Question? Good question, yes. The question is, does Expression Design Tools today support TFS and source control? It doesn't, unfortunately, support it integrated inside the client experience. You can use either the command line tool or you can use the separate Windows Power Toy in order to manage it. Going forward, what you will see is the ability for Expression tools to enlist directly inside a TFS project and actually do work item tracking as well as project management for both Visual Studio and Expression. That's sort of the next step forward, but that's definitely coming. Let's go ahead and use Expression to make this look a little bit better. And I'm definitely not a good designer, but I can have fun inside this tool and make something actually look pretty bad. But anyway, so I'm doing a nice gradient blend here. One of the cool tricks you can go ahead and do is create what's called a storyboard sequence. And so I'm just going to call it timeline 1. And I can basically say on any element, create a timeline. And so I can say, hey, let's rotate this around like that, and then pull this down here, and then go ahead and raise it up, which should be enough to make anyone nauseous if you do it, fast enough. So anyway, so that's a sort of simple timeline. You can define any number of those timeline sequences, get them any names you want. Let's go ahead and hit Save. And I can then go back into Visual Studio. My XAML file is obviously changed. You can see here's the timeline sequence being expressed, as well as my gradient background, as well as my text block with some rendering transforms on it. One cool thing is because all of the graphic formats are in text, when you do use something like source control, you can actually do dips of your UI from version to version, whereas if it's a binary file or a JPEG, obviously you can't. This way you can see exactly who changed what and when. And if we go back and write some code now, rather than just say, I don't know, we can go ahead and say timeline1.begin. And I can program against this animation sequence that I built inside Blend using C#. Go ahead and run this. What's that? Oh, I'm still debugging. Good point. Thank you. Stop debugging. Run that again. And away we go. So it's a little weird, but it works. So anyway, that's sort of simple example of kind of round-tripping back and forth between the client and the server. Now, typically, it's fairly rare that you're going to build just a client piece of a web application. Obviously, you want to be able to do a server piece as well, and ideally blend the two together in a pretty rich way. And so you can use Silverlight with any back-end server technology, but obviously we've done a lot of work to make sure it works great with ASP.NET. And so if I want to add an ASP.NET project into the solution, I can just say add project. Let's get here, I'm going to take an existing ASP.NET project that I already have here. And so you can see both your server piece now and your client piece both in your app. I can then go ahead and also set it up so that automatically every time I do a build, Visual Studio will copy the client piece of the Silverlight app into the ASP.NET web project. And so I can do that by basically just saying add a Silverlight link, point at the Silverlight project in my solution I want to go ahead and incorporate. And now when I do a Control-Shift-B, it's going to compile and copy into the ASP.NET project. And so if I set this as the startup project, run default.aspx, it'll go ahead, let's see if we're starting up for the first time, and then go ahead and actually run the project and host it inside an ASP.NET project. Turn it wake up. There we go. And so now there, hit refresh to run it again. There you go. So fairly easy way to go ahead and add Silverlight content into an ASP.NET project. Now, obviously, you also want to typically exchange data back and forth between the server and the client, so you can actually visualize something interesting on the client. So one of the things you can do, obviously with ASP.NET, is write web services. And these web services can be built using either ASMX or the new WCF web service technology. So here's a simple example of kind of a basic web service called flight service with a method called lookup flights. So it allows me to pass in sort of origin and destination and time information, and it goes ahead and returns back a list of flights for me to consider. So that's sort of exposed on the server side. I can then go ahead inside my Silverlight project, decide I want to add a reference to it so I can call it from the client. To do that, I just say add web references. VS can actually show me all of the services running inside my solution. In this case here, I'm just going to go ahead and say introspect the flight service.asmx call on the server. It's going to go ahead and grab the WSDL file. It's going to go ahead and look at what are the methods, events and properties that are exposed, and how all that works. And then hopefully in just a second, my server comes back up, it's going to go ahead and create like client-side proxy objects for me, either in VB or C#. I can put it in whatever namespace I want. I'm just going to call this airlines. And now within my Silverlight project, you can see I have an airline proxy. And what this means now is I can just say airline.flightservice, new airline.flightservice. And now if I say svc dot, there's that lookup flights method with IntelliSense and built-in serialization back and forth between the client and the server for .NET. I can call this either synchronously. There's also async version, so I can go ahead and say call this and call me back when the data returns. The benefit here then now is you can exchange data back and forth between the client and the server. You can use .NET both on the server as well as on the client. You can even go ahead inside Visual Studio and set a breakpoint both on the client, even on the Mac, as well as a breakpoint on the server, and actually go ahead and debug both in a single debug session. And that gives you kind of a lot of power, a lot of flexibility. And because we have Link now supported both in the server with Orcus, as well as within Silverlight, you can actually use Link to SQL, Link to entities, or Link to Hibernate on the server side to grab your data, stream it across the web service, and then do further filtering and querying on the client and data bind it against your WPF UI. But it offers a lot of flexibility. The app you build runs completely cross-platform. So this particular sample here is, kind of obviously a fairly basic sample. It's a flight app is the idea, and so rather than have kind of why is there a fruit box on my thing, what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually I want to build sort of some flight picking UI for, like, say, an airline app. And to help with that, I can go ahead and add some controls into my project. As I mentioned, we'll have a rich control model supported with Silverlight. So we'll have, obviously, core controls, data binding controls, grid layout controls. In the meantime, I can also go ahead and just build controls using the Silverlight control API. So in this case here, I have a couple of Silverlight airline controls, and just add them, reference them like I would a normal project with VB or C#. And what I can then go ahead and do in my XAML is just say I want to reference this class library with an app prefix, and I can just add app::map, app::calendar, app::itinerary picker into my XAML file. And let's go ahead and get rid of this since we no longer have my message control in there. And let's just go ahead and run this app again. And what you'll see now is I have the calendar control built entirely in XAML. Notice how you can do drag selection, something you can't do with Ajax today. And I can also, on my map, go ahead and pick locations that I want to start off and end up with. Because it's all vector-driven, the UI format, notice how I can make it scalable. So regardless of the resolution, I can get a nice look and feel. Now, there's no function, and I can page back and forth between the calendars, which is kind of cool. Now, there's no functionality wired up yet, so let's actually go ahead and do that. So I'm going to program against this. And specifically, I want to say every time you go ahead and select a destination on the map, I'm going to go ahead and run this event handler. And within this event handler, I'm going to go ahead and program against the itinerary picker control, which is the thing at the bottom of the page. And I basically want to say, show all of the itineraries that start at the origin on the map and go to the destination on the map and access the calendars. Let's just start with the start date. And now if I go ahead and compile and run this, if I select the date range, go from Seattle to where? Any preference? Chicago, okay. Unfortunately, there's no Orlando, which would have been convenient. But you can see basically now I have in the itinerary picker, I'm basically binding all of the flights that go between Seattle and Chicago. Now, if I want to go one step further, obviously I can do that as well, and I'm going to just wire up on the itinerary picker control. I can basically say when you select an itinerary, in other words, when you hover over or click on one of the things at the bottom, wire up this other event handler. And within this, I just want to tell the map, show the itinerary picker's itinerary on the map and visualize it. And now if I go ahead and run this, select some dates, we can go from, say, Chicago to Miami, since that's the closest. You can see a couple different things here. Notice how it actually can show me all the different paths. You get a little plane. It's gratuitous, but it's cool, isn't it? And likewise, we can, find weird and wacky locations. That's actually not so wacky, but anyway. But so you get the idea in terms of kind of the experiences you can go ahead and build. To see kind of what this looks like again on the Mac. Go ahead and here's our app that we just built. Select some dates. Let's go from Bismarck to anyone from Bismarck? No. Oh, someone is. That's impressive. So Richmond. There's a good flight. We go Des Moines, Chicago, Richmond. Again, it's running on the Mac. Works the same in both places. I get the same experience. Again, it's vector driven, so no matter what resolution I run it at, I can make it work well, and I can have a nice, rich, seamless experience. And the benefit, obviously, is I can use Visual Studio to develop it. I can, again, debug both the client and the server at the same time. I can use the same language in both places. I can use the same .NET APIs, same capabilities in both places. Question over there, yeah? Good question. So the question is, so what needs to be installed on the client to enable this? I think probably Jamie showed it today in the keynote. Basically, today everything here is a 4 meg runtime. And you install once. And you can basically, as part of your web app experience, if it's not already installed, you can detect that and automatically install it. It takes about 20 seconds to install, does not require a reboot, and doesn't interfere with anything on the client. So once it's installed on the client, then you can run any app here. This app itself, I think, is on the order of less than 100K to download. And the user just types in a URL in order to go ahead and load it. And the great thing about this page is this is done with HTML using ASP.NET. and this part right here is being done with Silverlight. And so you can kind of blend the two together in a single development experience. So a couple other demos quickly show. How many people saw the Top Banana demo this morning? Number of people. Go ahead and quickly. Good question. Yes, the question is, can you use what kind of development tool can you use to build on the Mac? Because a lot of designers use the Mac. We don't today support Expression on the Mac. What we do support, though, is there are plugins that allow you to use things like Illustrator or Photoshop and export to XAML. And so you can actually, if your designers already like Illustrator, just go ahead and use that, and they can just go ahead and save as XAML if you want to. That exists now. You can download the Illustrator to XAML exporter immediately. This app, I think we showed this morning, but I'll just quickly show it for people who didn't see it. Basically, it's a video editor. Allows you to go ahead and look at video sequences all running in the browser. We can go ahead and I have no idea what that is, but that looks cool. You can kind of see a little snippet of it. We can go ahead and collapse that down. I can go ahead and let's just take again another snippet here. Put some random stuff. Play it. Put that in. I can then go ahead and join these sequences together. So notice the snap line. I can go ahead and use any resolution, so I can blow this up a little bit, and I can just use this navigator window in order to navigate around the page. And then if I want to, I can hit preview and actually show the end-to-end sequence running together. So fairly easy way to do kind of a built-in video editor, all running within the browser. Cool thing, anyone guess how big the download size of this is? Yeah. Under 50K. So things like 48, 49K. And so once you have Silverlight Runtime installed, go and type the URL of this Top Banana app, and the user should be able to see it, sub-second, have it come up, and you're able to go ahead and work on it. And the beauty is, again, it doesn't require anything else other than Silverlight on the client. All of this is vector-driven, so as we kind of increase the size, notice how the quality doesn't degrade on the images, because these aren't bitmaps, these are actually vectors, and you can do scalable resolution on it. Questions? Good question. So the question is, what about the video here? Once you finish building your video clip, how do you save it? What we're trying to do with the Top Banana is actually give you a URL at the end and actually be able to automatically push it up into the Silverlight streaming service. And so you can then just take the URL, embed it in your web page, and you're good to go. But we actually do the transcoding of the video on the server. So the client actually does the cut list, and then the server mashes them together. A couple other quick samples I'll just go ahead and show. These other ones you'll also be able to go ahead and download. This is, anyone see the Surface announcement of the cool play table? You can go ahead and it's table Surface, and pretty cool app. It's built with WPF. I talk a little bit about that on my blog. This is sort of an app that someone on my team built. Actually, it only took him an afternoon. And he posted on his blog, which is kind of like a, just lost our video output here. Oh, we're back, good. This basically shows kind of an example of sort of a similar experience where you can go ahead and rotate videos, pull images around, and have lots of fun with them, doing whatever you want. The cool thing about this particular app is if you go ahead and look at the code, here's the XAML. So there's actually nothing pre-built. This is the C# code. It's a total of 200 lines of code in order to build that entire app. Works with Silverlight today. Next one, go ahead and quickly show. This is sort of an interesting example of a viewer app. People use Office 2007. Yeah. So there's the Office's 2007 file format is called XPS, and it's basically an XML file format that allows you to go ahead and save things out. People use Adobe Acrobat Reader. Everyone's pretty much, yeah. So that's a big 20 meg download. This is sort of a simple proof of concept built entirely in Silverlight, which is a reader that lets you open up Office apps and be able to go ahead and view them within the browser. You can scroll around. You can go ahead, and if it's a long file, you can support pagination and work with it. And again, as you scroll it up, the quality of the text, because it's all vector-driven, you get really nice, crisp text quality. Again, I'll post a download for this particular app. This is 300 lines of code. Total, including parsing all of the XPS file format as well as displaying it on the screen. So it gives you sort of, again, some examples of what you can do. Last one I'll just go ahead and quickly show is prototype of some UI controls that we'll come out with. So Silverlight 1.1 today doesn't have rich layout controls and rich input controls. This is a dev on the Silverlight team who's been having some fun prototyping some stuff on top of Silverlight, and basically shows how you can toggle between different layout modes for doing UI controls. So it's not a terribly interesting sample, but it gives you some sense of some of the types of abilities that are coming. And if you look at the UI and you're familiar with WPF, you'll see it looks fairly familiar. Basically, you can have stack panels, grid panels for layout. You can have standard label text boxes and other controls for doing your input. So sort of a simple example of that. Last little sample I'll go ahead and show is we've shown everything so far using C# and VB to build the apps. This particular app is called the DLR console app. Again, you can go ahead and download this today. This is an app that's using our dynamic language runtime. And what this is basically doing is building an IDE running in the browser. And so it's actually reflecting on all the .NET types in order to build up IntelliSense at startup time. And so you can see here, I can go ahead and say import WPF. I'm typing Python in the browser. Canvas dot, you can see you get IntelliSense against all the .NET object models in the browser. I can say red brush. And over here, interactively, you can see the UI taking effect. And if I want to just say some code, here's some sample Python code. I can hit Control-Enter in order to run it. I'm defining an event handler for light and dark. And as I enter and exit that text, the Python code's running in the browser. So this entire shell experience, as well as the actual app I'm building, was all written using IronPython, which is Microsoft's Python implementation on top of .NET. So it gives you sort of hopefully a cool example of how you can go through iterative development, as well as compiled development, using whatever language you want, target any browser. So, any questions really quick on that? Yeah. Good question, yes. So the question is it possible to see the HTML that's generated with all of this? This actually right here is not actually HTML. So this is actually using WPF as the output. There's a talk that's going to be a little bit later on. Well, actually, I can show you. Actually, I'll just open it up here. There's a talk a little bit later on, that, part 1 and part 2 of building Silverlight with .NET, that will actually go into more detail about what the HTML looks like. The high level here, basically, what you just do is we ship a JavaScript library with Silverlight, and you basically, in the location where you want to insert your Silverlight control, you just basically call that JavaScript script, and we'll go ahead and dynamically load it into the HTML DOM. But there'll be a breakout talk that'll go in a little bit more depth on that a little bit later on this week. So as I showed a little bit of ASP.NET support for Silverlight as part of that end-to-end demo. As I mentioned briefly also, you can use Silverlight with any back-end server technology. You can use it with ASP.NET, you can use it with classic ASP, you can use it with JSP, you can run it on Windows or Linux servers. But obviously we're going to be adding lots of great support with IF and with ASP.NET, specifically targeted Silverlight. And I think one of the benefits, as I mentioned earlier, is the ability to run .NET code both on the client and the server when you're building your application. So with ASP.NET available to download today as part of our futures release, you can now download both a ASP XAML as well as an ASP media control that allows you to very easily embed a Silverlight control or media content directly within your HTML. Again, some talks later on this week will specifically go into that. We also then, as you saw earlier in my demo, support web services, both WCF as well as ASMX web services being hosted within ASP.NET, and allow you to go ahead and call that from within a Silverlight client. And we're also going ahead and taking the ASP.NET membership profile and other application services and going to be exposing them on the server so that you can go ahead and use them within a Silverlight client app. So if you want to manage your user membership, user roles, things like that, you can go ahead and use ASP.NET using the provider model to go against any backend you want. You can use the IS7 admin tools now in order to manage that, and you can now use it both within ASP.NET pages, within Indigo or ASMX web services, and now on the client using Silverlight as well. So hopefully a pretty powerful way to go ahead and maximize both your programming model, but also really make your administration deployment experience much better. IS7 has built-in web form support. I'll talk about this briefly at the end of my talk tomorrow. But basically at a high level, what it allows you to go ahead and do now is you can have any number of front-end stateless web server boxes that point to a central location to retrieve both its configuration, the app code, as well as the app content. And that basically allows you now to plug in new boxes into a farm and scale things out. It's great for ASP.NET apps. You also can take advantage of it now for free with Silverlight as well. And that includes both the management of it as well as actually the deployment and runtime operations of it. For all the streaming stuff, as I mentioned, if you want to, you can just upload a video file onto the server and point to it within Silverlight, and we'll go ahead and play it. You can also go ahead and install the Windows Media Server, which is a free add-on on top of Windows, which allows you to go ahead and stream the content instead. And at a high level, what this means is that you can go ahead and skip ahead very easily into a later part of the video sequence without having to download everything in between. We're also then shipping something later this year we call the IS7 bandwidth throttler. High level explain both the media streaming as well as the bandwidth throttler. Think of this video that I showed earlier. It's a large video. It's playing HD quality. It's probably a couple megabytes in size. If you think about when you hit with a browser or a Silverlight client and you download this video, if you look at the network traffic on your web server, you'll typically see an access pattern like this, where basically the web server is going to go ahead and spit out the video as quick as possible and try to get it down to the client, because that's what it's optimized to do by default. The downside is if someone doesn't watch the entire video, you just paid a lot of bandwidth costs because you download this video they didn't actually watch. So what you can go ahead and do with either Windows Media or with the bandwidth throttler is go into our admin tool and configure your media in order to be throttled. And basically there's lots of options for how you do this. But basically, at a high level, what I'm doing right here is saying, go ahead and throttle this video content. I want you to go ahead and immediately download the first 20 seconds of the video as fast as you can so that the client can start playing it and not fall behind. And then from that point on, go ahead and actually throttle the content that's downloaded. In other words, don't try to send it as quickly as possible. Instead, go ahead and send it as little as possible in order to keep the video keep playing. And the benefit there is if the user goes ahead and actually cancels the video, the server will actually stop sending it, and you only have to pay for the 20-second burst and whatever amount of the video that they actually went ahead and watched. So nice, easy way to go ahead and stream your videos super effectively on the server. It's a free add-on on top of Windows Server to take advantage of. So kind of high-level recap, and I'll open up the questions. We're pretty excited by Silverlight in that we think it's really going to enable you to build kind of these next-generation user experiences. Ones that blend media, one that blends graphics, one that blends data, and that you can use kind of both a JavaScript, but in particular a .NET programming model in order to go against. You'll be able to use any programming language in order to run against it. You can use Expression as well as Visual Studio tools in order to build it, and you'll be able to take advantage of lots of services out there. There's lots of talks later on this conference that you can go ahead and attend in order to learn more. At a high level, in terms of what bits are available today, you can go ahead and download our 1.0 beta as well as our 1.1 alpha on the website now. All of the apps, all of the demos, all the tools that I showed are available for free download starting immediately. And you can go ahead and start playing around with Silverlight and start using it. Later this summer, we're going to ship Silverlight 1.0, which has all the media support built in, as well as the JavaScript programming model. And so you can start immediately taking advantage of that. You can also go ahead and use the streaming service on the web. So if you do have any videos that your company is currently hosting, just go ahead and transcode them into WMV or VC1 format if you haven't already. Host them on the service, and you'll save a whole bunch of money and take advantage of the Microsoft CDN network. We'll then go ahead and continue to ship alphas and betas of Silverlight 1.1 work. That includes the .NET support. And you're going to go ahead and see much richer support in terms of UI control, data binding, layout managers. A lot of the goodness of WPF will be brought into the Silverlight download. And you'll be able to go ahead and build these kind of rich .NET experiences that work cross-platform inside the browser. And then obviously once it's available, you'll have Expression as well as Visual Studio support in order to go ahead and target it. So to learn more, check out the www.silverlight.net website. Again, you can download all the bits, all the tools from that today. And then also go ahead and check out my weblog, which is weblogs.asp.net/ScottGoo. And I post usually a couple times a week on various topics and try to have some Silverlight content coming out every week going forward. So with that, thanks a bunch. Hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. With that, we'll go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I want to give you the opportunity to complete a survey on your screen now. You should see a web page. You can click on one of the two blue links there in the middle, and that'll pop up some survey questions for you to respond to. We definitely appreciate any feedback you might have with regards to this session. Thank you kindly for joining us. I do want to remind you that a replay of today's live event or to register for upcoming events will be posted to www.microsoft.com/webcasts. The streaming media replay and the downloadable WMV file from this session will be available within 24 hours. This concludes the audio portion of today's webcast. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.